Hewn out of the solid rock, the ancient ruined city of Petra lies within a ring of forbidding sandstone mountains in the desert southwest of modern Amman, 50 miles south of the Dead Sea in Jordan. Such is the site's protected position that even today this spectacular complex of temples, tombs, and houses can only be accessed on foot or on horseback. Entrance to Petra is via a dark winding crevice in the rock, known as the cleft in Arabic, which is in places as little as a few feet wide. This great mystery of the desert contains nearly 1,000 monuments, and once possessed fountains, gardens, and a permanent water supply. But why was it carved out of the sandstone in such a secluded, arid location? Who built this majestic city and what happened to its inhabitants? The earliest known population of Petra was a Semitic-speaking tribe known as the Edomites, mentioned in the Bible as descendants of Esau. But it was a culture called the Nabateans who were responsible for most of the incredible architecture at Petra. The Nabateans were of nomadic Arabic origin, but by the 4th century BC had begun to settle down in various parts of Palestine and southern Jordan, and around this time they made Petra their capital city. The naturally fortified position of the site on a trade route between Arabian, Assyrian, Egyptian, Greek, and Roman cultures allowed the strength of the Nabateans to grow. Gaining control of the caravan route between Arabia and Syria, the Nabateans soon developed a commercial empire that extended as far north as Syria, and the city of Petra became the center for the spice trade. The wealth accumulated by the Nabateans at Petra allowed them to build and carve in a style that combined native traditions with Greek influence. One of the Nabateans' most outstanding achievements at Petra sprang from necessity. Their city lay on the edge of the parched desert, so a water supply was of prime concern. Consequently, they developed highly sophisticated dams, as well as water conservation and irrigation systems. But the wealth of the Nabateans brought the envy of their neighbors and they were forced to repel several attacks against their capital during the late 4th century BC, by the Seleucid king Antigonus. The Seleucid Empire was founded in 312 BC by Seleucus I, one of Alexander the Great's generals, and included much of the eastern part of Alexander's empire. In 63 BC, the Nabateans were conquered by the Roman general Pompey, and in AD 107, under the Emperor Trajan, the area became part of the Roman province of Arabia Petrea. Despite the conquest, Petra continued to thrive during the Roman period, and various structures, including a vast theater, a colonnaded street, and a triumphal arch across the Psyche, were added to the city. It has been estimated that the population of Petra may have been as great as 20,000 to 30,000 at its height. However, as the importance of the city of Palmyra, in central Syria, grew on a trade route linking Persia, India, China, and the Roman Empire, Petra's commercial activity began to decline. In the 4th century, Petra became part of the Christian Byzantine Empire, but in AD 363 the freestanding parts of the city were destroyed in a devastating earthquake, and it is around this time that the Nabateans seem to have left the city. No one is sure exactly why they abandoned the site, but it seems unlikely they deserted their capital because of the earthquake, as very few valuable finds have been unearthed at the site, indicating that their departure was not a sudden one. A further catastrophic earthquake in AD 551 practically ruined the city, and by the time of the Muslim conquest in the 7th century AD, Petra was beginning to slip into obscurity. There was another damaging earthquake in AD 747 that further structurally weakened the city, after which there was silence until the early 12th century and the arrival of the Crusaders, who built a small fort inside the city. After the Crusaders left in the 13th century, Petra was left in the hands of sandstorms and floods, which buried a large part of the once great city until even its ruins were forgotten. It was not until 1812 that an Anglo-Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt rediscovered the lost city of Petra and brought it to the attention of the Western world. Burckhardt had been traveling in the Near East disguised as a Muslim trader in order to acquire knowledge and experience Oriental life. While in Elche, a small settlement just outside Petra, Burckhardt heard talk of a lost city hidden in the mountains of Wadi Moussa. Posing as a pilgrim wishing to make a sacrifice at the ancient site, he persuaded 2 of the Bedouin inhabitants of the village to guide him through the narrow sike. Burckhardt seems only to have managed a brief tour of the remains of Petra, before sacrificing a goat at the foot of the shrine of the prophet Aaron and making his way back to Elche. The explorer did, however, manage to produce a map of the ruins and made an entry in his journal to the effect that he had rediscovered Petra. What exactly was the function of this strange place? Was it a fortress, a commercial center, or a sacred city? There are many royal tombs throughout the site, as well as public tombs and shaft tombs. The latter places are apparently where criminals were buried alive. However, evidence from archaeological investigations over the past decade or so suggests Petra may have had many different functions over the hundreds of years it was inhabited. The magnificent entrance to the site is the more than a mile-long sike, or narrow gorge that winds through the soaring golden-brown sandstone cliffs. There are many small Nabatean tombs carved into the cliff walls of the sike, as well as evidence for the skill of the Nabateans as hydraulic engineers, in the form of channels once containing clay pipes which originally carried drinking water into the city. A further example of the engineering abilities of the Nabateans can be seen at the right of the entrance to the sike. Now, as 2,000 years ago, after heavy rain, water flows down the Wadi Moussa, or Valley of Moses, into the sike and threatens to flood the site of the city. There was a catastrophic flood at Petra in 1963, after which the government decided to construct a dam to redirect the flood water. During building, the excavators were astonished to discover that the Nabateans had already built a dam, probably around the 2nd century BC, to redirect the flood water away from the entrance and to the north, via an ingenious system of tunnels, which eventually diverted the water back into the heart of the city for the use of the population. The site eventually opens out dramatically to reveal the best known and most impressive of the monuments of Petra, the classically influenced treasury. The name treasury originates from a Bedouin legend that a pharaoh's treasure was hidden inside a huge stone urn, which stands at the top of the structure. The Bedouins, believing the story, would periodically fire their rifles at the urn hoping to break it open and recover the treasure. The many bullet holes still visible on the urn are proof of this practice. The well-preserved facade of the treasury, carved out of the solid sandstone rock, is decorated with beautiful columns and elaborate sculptures showing Nabatean deities and mythological characters, and stands 131 feet high and about 88 feet wide. The structure may have served as a royal tomb, perhaps with the king's burial place in the small chamber at the back, and also seems to have been used as a temple, though to which specific god or gods it was dedicated is not known. The exact date of the Hasna is not certain, though construction somewhere in the 1st century BC is the most likely. One of the few remaining freestanding buildings at Petra is the huge masonry-built temple of Dushares, also known mysteriously as Kasra al-Bint Firon, the castle of Pharaoh's daughter. This extensively restored large yellow sandstone temple stands upon a raised platform and has massive 75 feet high walls. The temple, built sometime between 30 BC and AD 40, was dedicated to Dushares, the chief god of the Nabateans, and has the largest facade of any building in Petra. Inside, the building is separated into 3 rooms, the middle room serving as the sanctuary, or Holy of Holies. Facing this structure is the Temple of the Winged Lions, named after 2 eroded lions carved on either side of the doorway. This structure, the most important Nabatean temple ever discovered, has been the subject of more than 20 years of research and excavation by the American expedition to Petra. Apparently, the temple was dedicated to the pre-Islamic Arabian fertility goddess Arid, who was one of the 3 chief goddesses of Mecca. Rather than a single building, the Temple of the Winged Lions is really a temple complex including workshops and living areas. The temple was founded in August at 28 and was destroyed in the May at 363 earthquake that brought down many of the city's buildings. The largest monument in Petra and one of the most striking is the monastery El-Dair, acquiring the name from its use as a church during the Byzantine period. The spectacularly situated structure, high up on the mountain, is 164 feet wide and 148 feet high, with its great doorway measuring around 26 feet in height. The structure is carved, as with the treasury, into the side of a cliff face. In fact, the monastery is similar to a larger, rougher, weather-beaten version of the more famous Petra monument. Archaeologists believe that construction of El-Dair began during the reign of Nabatean King Rabel II, but was never completed. Petra was brought back to the center of public attention in 1989 with the release of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, starring Harrison Ford. In the film, it served as a secret temple hidden for hundreds of years, and the place where Harrison Ford finally locates the Holy Grail. It was in the news again in 2005, when the Dalai Lama led a host of Nobel Prize winners who, together with actor Richard Gere, organized a 2-day conference at the Rose-Red City entitled A World in Danger. The fortunately excellent state of preservation of much of the ancient city can be explained by the fact that most of its structures have been carved out of solid rock. However, as with many ancient monuments, the sandstone buildings at Petra are in constant danger from excessive tourism, and the freestanding buildings in particular are suffering from salt, water, and wind erosion. On December 6, 1985, Petra was recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Hopefully, one of the world's most beautiful and spectacular ruined cities will be around for at least another millennium.